And there we were. It was the beginning of the good times and the bad times. So today, the video series that we're starting now is about Jeff Bezos, his soon-to-be ex-wife Mackenzie Bezos, and his new girlfriend of the past 8 months behind everybody's back, who was also married to somebody else, Lauren Sanchez. So, a couple of things before we get started. One, so my question to you is, if you are the richest man in the world and you can have anything or everything or anyone, right? What could you possibly want that's left? Well, rockets to Mars, obviously. Or perhaps other people's wives. That seems to be a trend. Our president did the same, right? So in this particular situation, it's almost too easy. It's like a reflex for many of us to jump in and assume that somehow this is Mackenzie's fault, or Lauren is this horrible interloper, which she may very well be. However, some backstory here, if you guys are not familiar. While Jeff was married to Mackenzie, and I'm sure he had more than a few girlfriends on the side, he at some point about 8 months ago got involved with Lauren, who, by the way, is still currently married. Now suddenly about to get divorced. So, while it would be easy to say that she threw herself at him and broke up their marriage, blah, 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 which is entirely possible. We're not ruling this out. At the same time, she was married to somebody else. So what kind of person would go after his associate's wife, right? Does not look good. There's no way this plays out well, right? So I'm going to start with a caveat. I already have a bias here because I absolutely detest poachers. Like, there is no reason in the world in my mind for you to have to steal somebody's wife or husband from that person. Nobody needs rescuing. This is the 21st century. They can walk out the door on their own. Okay, and sometimes with police assistance if necessary. They don't need you to rescue them. And what? There's 1 billion people on the planet and you couldn't find anybody else except the married to your friend person to run around with? That is like the lowest of the low. So we can have this conversation about being, in the billionaire circle and how it's so very hard to find people to date that don't want you for your money. But the fact of the matter is, good news for you, chum. Like, I'm pretty sure she only wants you for your money too. Like, honey. So in this particular case, I really don't know who I feel sorrier for, Jeff, or I don't feel the least bit of sympathy or pity for Lauren. She's going to get everything she deserves. God damn. But Mackenzie and Jeff, I don't know who I feel worse for, because I'm sure for Mackenzie, this, she gave birth to 4 of his kids, 25 years of marriage, and listen, all the money in the world is not going to give you the best years of your life back. It's not going to give your husband back, and it's not going to give you your self-esteem back, especially when your husband basically throws you away and says, you're not interesting enough for me anymore, right? I'm sure she would have put up with the girlfriends, but walking out is a whole other issue entirely. And the other is that with Jeff, like, listen, between you and me, I'm pretty sure that Mackenzie hopped on that train early on because she saw something she could work with. Let's not kid ourselves here. All right. She wasn't looking at Jeff going, oh, hubba, hubba. No. She was looking at Jeff, who had a very well-paying, high-status job at the place she was working, and she saw financial potential. And across the charts, the two of them together did exactly what she saw was possible with him. So I'm sure a lot of her original motivation was literally to jump on his gravy train, okay? So, and now 25 years later, it appears that Mr. Bezos is having a bit of a midlife crisis. And, the problem is he has so much money, he's never, ever gonna know if someone is involved with him for his money or for him. Unless he is literally broke as a joke, he's never gonna know. So talk about being the loneliest man in the world, right? So that is unfortunate. Of course, then there's Lauren, who I have nothing good to say about. Nothing at all. But we'll get to her in a minute. So I just want to point that out. Like, this is kind of my perspective on all 3 of these players right now. And like, I don't feel as unsympathetic towards Lauren because she is the female agent that catalyzed the break of this marriage. Like, this marriage was undergoing a stress test anyway. I don't feel any sympathy for Lauren because she's already married. She's leaving her husband for another man who just circumstantially happens to have a lot more money than her own husband. That doesn't look good. And worse, if you look at these charts and consider the fact that they were all friends. Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie were friends with Lauren and her husband. They were friends. Lauren was friends with Mackenzie and still interjected herself or allowed herself to be pulled by her husband at the expense of that friendship. That's pretty damn low. No matter how you slice it, that's just low. So that's why you're not going to get a lot of sympathy or pity from me, because obviously Lauren was a friend of Mackenzie's and she was married to somebody else. And she's doing this to the husband and the friend. Girlfriend is nothing nice. Nothing nice as far as I'm concerned. So there you go. All right, now let's look at the charts. Alrighty, so we're going to start with the chart for Jeff and Mackenzie Bezos. So before I get into the video, I just want to make a little notation here real quick. One of the things that's important to understand about marriage, and anybody who's been married can tell you this, right? You know, the success of a marriage largely depends on what your expectations for it are. And more importantly, it doesn't matter how much you love somebody. That doesn't mean you're going to be able to successfully get through life together. Relationships are complicated. Marriage is difficult. It is challenging. Marriage is a cooperative or team effort. And in order for a marriage to be successful, we have to be able to navigate life as a team, right? Of working towards specific goals and agendas without getting in each other's way, you know, and also not working at cross purposes with each other. It's no easy feat. And couple that with whatever your personal goals and agendas are for this marriage to act as a vehicle with. So not everybody marries for love. Some people marry for financial security. Some people marry for companionship. Some people marry for entertainment. And some people marry for compulsive reasons. You know, the serial married people married 4, 5, 6, 12 times, Jesus, because they call themselves hopeless romantics. Some people marry for sex, you know, and some people marry for a cover because they need to look married, you know, or look heterosexual or whatever. So there's any number, some people marry for citizenship. There are any number of reasons why people get married. And they're all valid. They're all valid. It's not our job to tell other people that, oh, that's a horrible reason to get married, and that's awful, and you shouldn't do it. People do what they do, and as long as both parties understand what the actual deal is and they're both in agreement with it, that is the best we can hope for. It's when people don't understand what they're signing on for, because people are misrepresenting things, then it's a problem. The misrepresentation of what your agenda is involving another person, that's always a bit of a thing, right? So with Jeff and Mackenzie, looking at her chart and starting comparing it to his, I can promise you two things about this marriage between these two people. One, they were very compatible. Obviously, 25 years of marriage, you have to be a little bit compatible, right? But the other thing too is that Mackenzie, I'm sure, I mean, I'm speculating at this point, because I can't read her mind, and you're certainly not going to do it looking at a chart. But I'm sure Mackenzie knew exactly what she was signing on for, and Mackenzie saw an opportunity when she saw Jeff, and she jumped on that train to catch her ride. I don't think she expected him and her as a team to become as wealthy as they did. I'm sure she expected a comfortable life. But make no mistake, I'm sure a lot of Mackenzie's interest in Jeff had to do with his ability to perform and be a provider. You know, and to make life easier for herself, because why else would you get married? You're not going to marry somebody who's going to make life more difficult for you, right? And on Jeff's end, I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm going to guess that Jeff was a late bloomer, and Mackenzie may have been the first or second person in his life that ever slept with him, voluntarily and not for money. He was awkward when he was younger. So, you know, if that's the case, that would absolutely explain the 6-month turnaround in courtship from dating to marriage. Mostly because guys who are late bloomers, you know, their first or second woman that sleeps with them without having to pay them, it really kind of goes to their head. So women tend to have, there are some women who have an orgasm and swear up and down that they're in love because they can't separate the two things. In their mind, it's the same thing, and it's not. And there are men who are the same way. So, we can't fault him for that. And God bless Mackenzie. She's done quite the job on him, looking at what he looks like right now in the middle of his midlife crisis. And yes, I believe Mr. Bezos is having a midlife crisis. But my God, he looks so good doing it, right? Good for you, Mackenzie. You did a good job. And now she's about to get paid for it. All right. So, looking at these charts, here are some remarkable aspects I want you guys to look at. The first thing I want you guys to key in on, right? So right here, we've got this conjunction going between Mercury and Venus, okay? And the nodes, South Node and Sun. But also, see these early degrees right here? It's Mercury and Venus. Look at this. This sets up a grand trine in earth signs between their charts. So when you have a grand trine in earth signs, typically what this means is that you have the ability to master the material world and make money. You can make money. This is a strong financial aspect, especially between charts. So these two people coming together, there's no way they would have not been able to establish a lot of financial security working together. So if you're looking for somebody who can bring that sort of luck into your life, obviously you want somebody who sets up a grand trine in your chart or with your chart. But remember, that doesn't guarantee that you'll actually like each other or love each other. It just means you'll be really good at making money. So maybe you should be business partners rather than marriage partners. Okay. So right here, we've got a Mercury-Venus conjunction across the charts. So there's a real appreciation and a delight in the way the other person speaks. So the inside chart, this is Mackenzie, and that's Jeff. So one of the things Mackenzie often said is that it was his laugh that attracted her, right? She really enjoyed the sound of his laugh and the way he thought. And that completely jives with what we're seeing across the charts. Her Venus is represents the things that bring her pleasure, and his Mercury is right there at her Venus degree. Now, the other thing, we've got a Mercury-Mars conjunction going the other way, right? So her Mercury is now conjunct his Mars. So with his Mars in Capricorn, he is a worker, right? I mean, he is absolutely a workaholic and he is driven to succeed. With her Mercury there conjuncting his Mars, she has a keen understanding and a business sense of how best to direct and navigate him to assist him towards his professional goals. One of the things that's very important when you look at compatibility over the long term, not the short term, but the long term, you really want to have these Mercury aspects. You want to have Mercury either in good aspect with the other person's Mercury or Mercury in strong and good aspect with something in their chart. In their case, they've got tight, exact Mercury aspects between the charts. Right there, instantly, we know these two are going to be very compatible and are going to really, the way they think and talk and perceive the world is really going to stimulate them in good ways. So that's the first thing, right? Oh, let me get rid of this part of fortune. So we're going to disregard part of fortune. It is a mathematical point, and we don't actually have a time of birth for either of these people. So we're not using it. So disregard that. Sorry. All right. Now, the next thing that we look at, or the next thing that we're seeing when we see these charts, right? So he's got her moon, because Mackenzie's in the middle. Her moon, now remember, we don't know the time, so the moon moves around a little bit because we're guessing, right? Makes a beautiful trine to that Venus and Saturn in his chart. So right off the bat, they're very comfortable with each other, and there's a sympathetic understanding of what feels good. So Jeff needs a lot of space in his relationship. He does not like clinging vines. He can't deal with overly emotional people. And the moon in Libra needs lots of space as well. She needs, the moon in Libra needs a partner, needs someone to play off against and get perspective with, to bounce ideas off of, but they also need space. They also don't do well with overly clingy, possessive people. So in this way, they're very compatible with each other because the things that they need and the things that they're comfortable with jive very, very well for each other or together. Now, the other thing is, remember his Mercury up here that's conjunct her Venus, right? Well, look at this. She already carries a a Venus-Saturn trine. So, and Saturn is retrograde. So one of the things with Mackenzie is that Mackenzie has some really deep-seated concerns about financial security and her old age and all that sort of stuff and being lovable, right? So Mackenzie never really feels very attractive to begin with. So for her, having security is extremely important. And having status is also very important, because there's a lot of trying to shore up and build up her sense of worth or value. Okay, and this will come through things and status and money. Now, with his Mercury conjuncting her Venus and trining her Saturn simultaneously, what this does is this means that Jeff has a very keen understanding of what works for her and how to make her feel secure. So, and one of the things that we know is that through the marriage, Mackenzie has said, or made note of before, that Jeff was always very good about surprising her with gifts. So Jeff knows how to deal with her, and the way he understands and responds to her is a way that works very well for her. And there's probably a tremendous reason why the marriage lasted as long as it did. I'm sure he's had his little tete-a-tetes on the side. And she's just kind of turned like a blind eye to them. Because as long as girlfriend was having her house under control and everything was taken care of and the money was there and he was coming home, she was fine. And listen, I mean, we can say what we want. It's not our marriage. And if that's what works for them, that's what works for them. Okay. Now, some other things that we're looking at between these charts. I mean, this is such a strong chart. Some of the, more problematic stuff that comes up between the charts. Jeff has Jupiter in Aries, and she's got the Sun in Capricorn. So Jeff does best and feels most alive and really feels like he's thriving when he's given challenges and taking risks, which goes completely, because that's a square, against her nature. She's very conservative and very cautious and very risk averse. She does not like taking chances or risks. So the things that propel him are the things that she absolutely does not like. So that's a bit of contention between them. The other thing is that Aries is very childlike and Capricorn is very old manish, right? So with the Sun in Capricorn in her chart, she's going to want somebody who's more adult and more of a papa, right? More of the old man kind of thing, which completely cuts against the grain of that Jupiter in Aries in Jeff's chart, which makes him perpetually childlike. So there's always going to be, no matter who Jeff is with, there's always going to be that part of Jeff that's very much about being childish, and like literally the perpetual teenager, because it's Aries, or the perpetual infant, depending on how you look at it. All right, let me get rid of this. Sorry. All right, now she has Jupiter. She has Jupiter in 2 Scorpio, but that's not really doing anything we're worried about here. One of the other things that's interesting is that his Mars is also trining her Pluto, right? It's a very powerful aspect. So anytime anything would have come along at Taurus, from like 27 to 29 Taurus, that would have activated that trine in their charts, which would have made them even more money. And I don't remember the last time we had something at that degree. I'll have to check. It's not particularly important in this particular reading. Oh, sorry. So some of the other things that we look at are like Venus-Mars aspects, right? So he's got the Venus in Aquarius, and it's conjunct Saturn. So he likes his women a little cold. He likes them bright. And typically with Venus-Saturn conjunction, you get people who are attracted to like the eyes-wearing preppy girls, or the totally over-the-top punk rock girls. Like it's never anything in between. So you know, his Venus Saturn conjunction, mostly he's really attracted to ideas and thoughts. So it's kind of like it's almost like the things that you hear about with Elon Musk, but he's so uber intellectual, which is not really the case with him when it comes to his relationships. In Jeff's world, he's very much about ideas and people who stimulate ideas in him. So he would absolutely be attracted to either the idea of someone or their mind, which hopefully are the same thing. His Mars is at 29 Capricorn. You know, there's some stuff I'm just not putting out there. Anyway, so with the Mars in Capricorn, the way he pursues things, the way he courts people, it's very old-fashioned, and it's very much about showing himself as the good provider, that sort of thing. So his Venus trines her moon, conjuncting his Saturn. Let me see what else we got here. Her Venus is at 5 Capricorn, and her Mars is at 12 Pisces. So here's what's interesting, I thought, about this. With her Venus at 5 Capricorn, right, and obviously conjuncting his Mercury, so there's an ease of communication between them. They really like talking to each other. The other thing is that with Venus at 5 Capricorn, she will come across as she has Jupiter and Scorpio too. Venus and Capricorn will come across as very Saturnine, right? So remember, he's got that Venus-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, which is very Saturnine. And here she's got this Venus in Capricorn. So her Venus echoes what this Venus and Saturn is describing. So right there is a bit of a match. Like he's attracted to the way she presents as Venus in Capricorn, which is very laced up and very old-fashioned and very, you have to be worth it. You know, this sort of thing. We have to do it the right way, which is probably why they got married so quickly, because there was no way you were going to lay up underneath her and not marry her, damn it. Excuse my language. Now, with Mars in Pisces, and it's trine Jupiter in Scorpio, with her, this tends to make her a bit of, and it's interesting because there's similar themes in Sanchez's chart, tends to make her a bit of a sexual chameleon, and also she tends to be more on the submissive but manipulative side when it comes to intimacy. So when you have this particular type of connection in a chart, you have somebody who's perfectly capable of being literally whatever you want them to be behind closed doors. Because, you know, they can do that. The thing about it, though, is Mars in Pisces is a very low energy placement. So his Jupiter is in Aries. He's all kinds of, and all over the place, right? So there's that workaholic Mars, he's got Jupiter in Aries, right? And he's got the moon in Sag again also. So there's all this fire and energy. He's constantly go, 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 go. But that is not her. She's got Mars in Pisces. She's got that moon over here. Let me show you. She's got this moon over here in Libra, and she's got Jupiter in Scorpio. So the Mars in Pisces right here and that moon in Libra, she's a very low energy person. This is not somebody who can keep up. So I'm wondering if all these pictures we used to see of her with him, these weird pictures would be like him and his guy posse, right? And then her in the middle of this. Like, I really wonder if some of those pictures weren't actually her tagging along to keep an eye on him. Because she would be very, very, with Venus and Capricorn and Saturn retrograde in Taurus, and with somebody who's worth that much money that every woman on the planet is after, she would have been more than a little bit insecure. So she would have tried to keep up with him, with his, you know, Jupiter and Aries adventures, which would have been a horrible fit for her and a really bad idea. But what are you going to do, right? The other thing I thought was interesting is if you look right here, they've got a Jupiter-Uranus opposition in the charts. One of the things with a Jupiter-Uranus contact like this is it's a little like lightning striking, right? So these two together were like a divining rod for water. Like they had the ability to kind of sniff out these opportunities that nobody else saw, right? So it's a very, very lucky combination to have. It can also, on the other hand, create a tremendous amount of risk-taking that's not so good. So there's a little bit of that going on. There's a lot going on between these charts that makes them extremely compatible, and those two being together for as long as they did and being as successful as they were makes all kinds of sense, right? Because look at this. Her Mars trines his Neptune, right? So there's a lot of sexual compatibility. And I'm not going to spend too much more time getting into this because we will literally be here all day long. But this is to say that Jeff and Mackenzie, when it comes to soulmates, and I'm not a huge fan of using that term because anytime somebody says that, oh, he's my soulmate, what they really mean is he's really good looking or he's got a lot of money. Because nobody ever called somebody ugly and broke their soulmate. I'm just saying. But in this particular case, I hate to say it, because I hate perpetuating this idea that there's only one soulmate out in there. But these two were so inconceivably well matched in so many ways. And because of the financial aspects between their charts, there's no way they could not have made a ton of money. So in this lifetime, they really, really did get lucky when they found each other, which is really impressive. It is unfortunate that they're getting divorced right now, but we're gonna look at that in a second. All right, so that is Jeff and Mackenzie. Now, let's take a look at the chart of Lauren Sanchez. Wait. Now, let's take a look at the chart of Jeff and Lauren. And again, I don't have times of birth for anybody. So ignore the things like the part of fortune and ascendant midheaven because they don't actually exist because we don't know where these things are. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Okay. All right. Now, this was pretty interesting. So with the first thing that I thought was interesting in Jeff's chart and the women in his life is that Jeff really does like strong women because you can see it in Mackenzie's chart and you can see it in Lauren's chart and you can also see similarities between the charts between Lauren and Mackenzie. Pretty interesting. So he's literally leaving one for a cheap copy of the other, as it were. So the first thing with these two, they've got a sun-sun conjunction. Anytime you have a sun-sun conjunction with somebody, you feel comfortable with them because you understand each other. Because in a lot of ways, you're a lot alike, right? So right off the bat, they get each other in terms of life goals and identities. You know, they get it. They totally get it. That however, does not guarantee long-term compatibility. Now, the other thing, if you look, right? So Jeff's Aries, remember that Jupiter and Aries we saw that was a challenge for Mackenzie to deal with because it so goes against her nature and her idea of what men should be like. Well, Jeff's Jupiter is on Lauren's Saturn. Now, this hasn't played out yet. It will, and it won't be pretty, but this is important. So we're going to leave that there. We're going to come back to that, but make a note that it's there. So, all right, so the next thing we're looking for are signs of compatibility. Is there anything else in here that connects these charts? Anything? Anyone? Bueller, going once, going twice. We're not seeing a whole lot here. So maybe Jeff's Mercury and South Node with her Uranus, which is going to lend itself to quick flings. There's nothing long-term in that. Right? What else we got here? All right. Well, we've got her Sun to his Pluto, which is going to give us this sense of fascination. But again, nothing necessarily long-term. That's not enough. That's not enough to build a long-term relationship with. So let's look at the Mercuries and let's look at the Venus and the Mars, and we'll work backwards. So let's start with Mars. So Mars is an indication of our sex drive and our sexuality and our heat, right? Now she's got the moon somewhere around her Mars. We don't have a time of birth, so that moon is going to move back and forth a little bit. All right. So one of the things we know coming right out of the gate, looking at this, is somebody with this setup right here. And if it's a female, like this is somebody who sees herself as a bit of a femme fatale. So she uses sex as a weapon, and she absolutely uses sex and sexuality to get what she wants done. All right. I'm not going to fault the girl for it. I'm just saying that's the way the game is played for her because she is all about power. That's the thing with Scorpio, this heavy Scorpio emphasis. It's not about the sex. It's about the power and the control, right? So there's, in a post I did somewhere else talking about narcissism in a chart, because everybody's so quick to blame, to call Leos narcissists. Bottom line, everybody, especially fire and air signs, are heavily narcissistic in their own ways. In this particular case, the narcissism comes with this image she has of herself, because it's all Scorpio, right? This image of she has of herself of being this James Bond, femme fatale, Mata Hari kind of, persuasive, charismatic sort of spy. Whatever. Anyway, sorry. That was a mouthful. So there's that, right? So we know that, I'm sure she played quite the I can do whatever your wife doesn't do sort of card with Jeff. And this, in her case, is combined with that chameleon Venus and Pisces. So I'm sure she batted her eyelashes and twisted herself this way and that way and wore those little rabbit fur handcuffs and whatever else he wanted. Because, whatever your wife can't do, I can fulfill that fantasy. That's exactly how this reads. So when she wants someone, that is her go-to. And I know that for many of you out there, this is your go-to, right? This is not anything particularly special. The only difference is she's probably better at it than you and I are. Okay. So that is her Venus and that is her Mars, right? Now her Mercury is here at 11 Aquarius. So does the Mercury do anything in the chart? Is there any mental connection between these two, right? So we're looking and we're looking, and literally the only thing we're finding is a sextile to Jupiter. That's it. That's it. So in terms of mental compatibility or mental attraction, there's not a whole lot connecting these two, right? So this so far is not looking like any deep, meaningful relationship. It looks like a fling, right? But maybe the information is somewhere else, right? Maybe Jeff's really not having a midlife crisis. Maybe Jeff really did find his soulmate. Yeah. All right, so let's start with Jeff. So Jeff's Mars, we know, is at 29 Capricorn. So what does that do with her chart? Anything? Not really. It's a wide conjunction to her Sun, and then a wide trine to her Pluto. But that's not, we can't work with that. That doesn't do enough for us. Oh, what just happened? There we go. So I'm not seeing a lot of strong Mars connections in this chart. Well, let me step back. No. Mars is sextile her Neptune. That's not enough either. All right, well, what about his Venus? Remember, the strong Venus and Saturn in Aquarius, he likes strong, independent women. He also likes women a little on the cold side, too. So he's not averse to, hired companions, as it were. All right, so here's Venus and Saturn, 24, 21 Aquarius. Do we have anything at all working with this in her chart? Not really. The closest thing we have, again, is another sextile to her Saturn. So there's a sense of understanding where their fears or their histories are concerned, but other than that, that's not a strong tie. There's not a lot there. So they may share a mutual appreciation of history or backgrounds, but other than that, there's nothing compelling here. All right. So now let's go to his Mercury. Well, maybe it's here with his Mercury, right? So his Mercury is at 5 Capricorn retrograde. So do we have anything at those degrees? Well, okay. So now it's looking a little better, right? So we've got a sextile to her Venus. We've got another sextile to that Mars and that Moon somewhere around there, right? No, but here's the problem. Again, the sextiles are nice, but it's not enough. And here's the fly in the ointment. His Mercury squares her Jupiter Uranus. So with his Mercury squaring her Jupiter Uranus, one of the things we can absolutely expect is a philosophical difference, huge ones. And typically this can be something as out there as religion, like literally religious and spiritual differences, or it could be a difference in values. Mercury retrograde in Capricorn has their own idea about how things are going to get done and how they're going to live their life. So they're extremely conservative in some ways. But in others, they cling to traditions that may not make any sense to other people. Jupiter and Uranus is very progressive and forward thinking. And with Jupiter, Uranus, so Lauren in and of herself is very lucky when it comes to relationships. But also too, with Jupiter, Uranus conjunct in Libra, she's not great at being in relationships. She's very good at short relationships. She's not good at long ones. And even when she's in long ones, she needs lots and lots of space and lots of freedom. So the problem is that Jupiter, Uranus, and Libra squaring Mercury in Capricorn, she may have her own ideas about how she's going to do things, which completely go against things that he believes should be done or are right or true. And this is going to be a huge sticking point in this relationship. So far, the strongest aspects we have found, right? It's a Sun-Sun conjunction, Mercury squaring that Jupiter-Uranus, and that's not good. And then what? Anything? Not really. So we can look at the moons, like we're stretching here. There's got to be more than this to keep a relationship together. So we know her moon is an early Scorpio. So anything that Mars does, the moon is going to do in his chart. We've already covered that, right? So maybe his moon, there's something here, right? So we know Jeff's moon is got to be either late Sagittarius or maybe like 0 Capricorn. It's entirely possible his moon is all the way into 0 Capricorn, but I'll bet you with that big laugh of his, it's got to be late Sag. So with a late Sagittarius moon, does this do anything in her chart? Anything at all? Bueller? Echo? Anything? Nope. Again, all we have is a sextile to Venus and Saturn. We have a lot of sextiles in this chart, which makes this relationship very, very ripe with opportunity and potential, but we don't have anything between these charts to indicate that this is a long-term, long-lasting relationship. So with that said, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that Mr. Bezos is having a midlife crisis, and this is a fling for him. He'll never marry her. And this is going to be a problem because Lauren has not only betrayed a friendship for this, but she's also divorcing her husband in the process for this man. I'm not pleased with either one of these characters in this particular story, but I'm going to bet you good money that they're not going to get married. And if they do, it's going to end very, very quickly and badly. So, and either way, they're both going to get what they deserve, which is no friends and no love, because you just don't do that to friends. You don't do that to your spouses. You definitely don't do that to your friends, and certainly not at the same time. Oh my God. All right. So let's take a look. So we've covered Jeff, and we've covered Mackenzie, and we've covered Lauren. So let's look at the aspects between these guys. So, come back here. Come back. There we go. All right. So, marriage is not easy. Marriage is not easy. So, is it a midlife crisis? Is it just symptomatic of other things going wrong in the marriage? Yada, yada, yada. Time will tell, but astrology can tell us sooner. So one of the things that we look for when stuff like this happens is we also look for the major transits happening between the charts to kind of get an idea what is going on here. Like, what is the evolutionary need that's being served here? So in this chart, this are the transits that are occurring right now. This one, this is Jeff's chart. This is Mackenzie's. And out here on the outside, where it belongs, is Lauren. So we're going to start with Jeff. So what transits are occurring in Jeff's chart or against Jeff's chart that might have precipitated this? So one of the things that we know, Uranus just made its station at 28 Aries, right? And it's about to go into Taurus. Major, major movement. So with Jeff's chart, it is, look at this. It's squaring his Mars. And with that, also his sun, give or take a few degrees, right? Jupiter, right here, is squaring his Pluto. And, oh wait, nope. Oh, sorry, right one. Yes. Jupiter is squaring his Pluto. So, Uranus squaring Mars, we know that there should have been some major rift or break occurring at this time. There's a stronger need and desire for freedom and movement. So there's a whole lot of chafing at the bit and really not liking restriction. Jupiter squaring Pluto is not great. Pluto is retrograde. Jupiter is in its rulership. So one of the things that we're looking at is as Jupiter has come down and approached that square to Pluto, it will result in a huge financial loss and or a huge amount of overestimation. So he may be really, that Jupiter in Aries, he may be really going on a limb and taking a risk here, and it will come back to bite him on the butt. All right, that should be Pluto. Now, also, Jupiter's opposing the moon? No. Well, so Jupiter may or may not be coming up on his moon. And so because we don't know where his moon is. But if his moon is in fact in late Sagittarius, that Jupiter should cross his moon, I believe the later part of this year when Jupiter gets down to those degrees. And this could, well, this could do a lot of things. One, it would indicate a physical move, possibly. But the other is that could literally take a woman out of his life. Only because Uranus is trining his moon. Jupiter will move into conjunct that, so we'll have a Jupiter-Uranus trine, which typically, well, not typically, but in this case, it's literally going to move somebody right out. So Lauren may be out just as soon as Jupiter gets down to those late degrees of Sagittarius and it trines Uranus. That may be the end of that relationship. And I'm hoping that's what it is and it's not Mackenzie being taken out. All right. The next one is Mackenzie. So what's going on with Mackenzie? Like what transits are occurring that we can see in Mackenzie chart? Well, here's what's interesting, right? So this Uranus that's just station direct, it's about to change signs. In Mackenzie's chart, it is making a yod formation toward Pluto under Neptune, right? This is never an easy transit to have to deal with. So Uranus setting up that yod to her Neptune and her Pluto. And these are all outer planets. There are major evolutionary things that are occurring through circumstances of which she has no control. I don't know that she could have avoided this if she wanted to, because if he didn't walk out, he may have been taken out by an accident or something like that. So yods are challenging to deal with, and I can't get into them too much here because it's a lot of information that we need to kind of like get into. But what I will say is with a yod, typically what we're looking at is the finger of the yod, which in this case is Uranus, is the trigger point or the lever that we're looking for that'll give us some idea of what to expect or how to work with it. And with Uranus in Aries as the apex of this yod, freedom and independence, literally the ultimate amount of freedom and independence, being born again, Uranus and Aries, would have been the driving force behind the circumstances. So this is literally an opportunity for Mackenzie, because this is her chart with the artist setting up in. This is literally an opportunity for Mackenzie to get out from underneath Jeff's shadow and to find her own identity. So that's good, right? That's very good. I mean, all things considered, like there's got to be something good out of this for her. All right. And what else we got here? While that is happening, transiting Neptune, or no, I'm sorry. Yes. Transiting Neptune should be here. Look at this. Transiting Neptune is conjuncting her Venus and her North Node. Now, that's not the best aspect, because Neptune all over your Mars tends to make it very it's draining, so you're not going to have a lot of energy, but it also makes it a little difficult to understand which direction to go. So in Mackenzie's case, there should be or needs to be a very heavy reliance on her intuition and falling back into her faith or her spiritual beliefs for her to navigate through this with this Neptune energy. So if she does that, she's going to be okay. If she doesn't do that, everything is going to kind of be like, it's literally going to be one thing after another blindsiding her because she's not going to see it coming. The other thing is that Mars can also sometimes represent the men in your life. And Neptune is the planet of living in your own fantasy world, as it were, living in dreams of possibility rather than realities. So with that all over Mars representing the men in her life, this could easily be a description of Jeff potentially living in the world of possibility and not reality. So Jeff may be so out there that he's not seeing anything for what it actually is. So there's that. Oh, what's going on here? Okay. And what else? Right. Okay. So this is mostly what we have. It's a lot of information here. So, and there's more, but I don't want to make this a 4-hour video. I'm sorry. All right. Now we have Lauren. So obviously is the third wheel in this, who's kind of the wedge that's driven the opening in the marriage, right? We kind of want to see, are there any major transits going on with Lauren that would show like an elevation for her? You know, obviously getting involved with the richest man in the world, you would think there would be some kind of elevation other than short-term benefit, right? So the question is, will this become a long-term relationship? When you start a relationship, it says a lot about how the relationship is going to end. So they started this relationship about 8 months ago, but it's not official until now. So even doing the timing for right now, and the announcement that she's leaving her husband, all sort of stuff, will give us an idea like what we can expect, at least as far as the I'm leaving my husband for this man thing is going. So what do we have for Miss Sanchez? So again, for her, because she and Mackenzie share similar aspects and similar charts, interestingly enough, she also carries that same yod that we saw in Mackenzie's chart in her chart. So the break from her marriage makes all kinds of sense as well. But remember, this yod is about being independent and on your own. This is not about breaking up with somebody to go get married again. So if Ms. Lauren is expecting to see a wedding ring out of this, she is sorely mistaken. Not with these aspects. All right. Now, what else we got here? So she has Saturn at 19 Aries. So with Saturn at 19 Aries, you know, it's interesting. With Saturn in Aries, people are terrified of being alone. She does not like being on her own. And here we go. Uranus and this yod is forcing her to do exactly what she's afraid of, which is be by herself. Now, with that, if we look down here at these transits, right, look at all this. Bang, 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 bang. We've got Mercury, Saturn, Pluto, and the Sun all making a square to that Saturn. So this is forcing a decision, but here's the important thing. Well, there's many important things. Here's one of the more important things. In this particular instance, because of this giant square to her Saturn, matters of integrity, character, honor, and ethics are all penultimate, like absolutely the most important considerations in every action she takes in her life right now. So if she's not coming from a place of tremendous integrity, all right, it will literally all come back to bite her on the butt like an alligator, you know? And I would have to say that at this particular point in time, she's not off to a good start. Not by a long shot. So I don't see anything good coming of this for her. I wish I could feel worse for her. But, you know, again, it's her Saturn. All these planets are setting up the square to Saturn. And remember, Saturn and Capricorn, this by itself, right? Saturn and Capricorn. Remember, Saturn and Capricorn, while it's transiting, for all of us, has to do with integrity, and honor and ethics and character and doing the right thing, doing things that you know to be true. Literally the golden rule, right? All the stuff we're taught in kindergarten about how to be a responsible citizen of the universe. That's what matters. And when you don't do Saturn correctly right now, while Saturn is in rulership, there's a very heavy penalty or consequence that comes with trying to take shortcuts and the work around the rules, right? And acting like the rules don't apply to you. And for all intents and appearances, it's not looking like she's going about any of this the right way. But that's between her and Saturn. All right. Now, what else do we have for her? Do we have anything else in here that's good, right? Maybe a Jupiter transit. Well, let's take a look. So Jupiter's at 14, right? So what does she have anywhere near here that could be good? Anything? Well, there is that Jupiter trining her Saturn. So that's going to make her feel very lucky, and it's going to give her some opportunity to go out and do her thing. So she has plenty of opportunity right now and lots of support to go and build a whole new life for herself. But again, the manner in which she chooses to do that is going to determine everything about what kind of on her own she's going to be. All right. Now, do we have anything else? Anything else? No, I'm not really seeing anything. So I'm not seeing a lot of powerful transits for her in terms of marriage, long-term relationships, yada, yada, yada. Like I just could not imagine a worse time to think about leaving somebody, right? Yeah, I'm not seeing it. So that's what the transits look like for all three of them. Now, to finish this, I thought this was interesting. So remember, they were all friends. 1, 2, 3, 4, Jeff. Okay, so in this soap opera, this is probably the most heartbreaking part of all. So let me start here. So typically when we think of relationship charts, our first thought is always to go to a romantic relationship. But the reality is that obviously we know that relationships encompass many things: family relationships, work relationships, friendships. Even in things like friendships, where we choose the people we're going to spend our time with, we can always find signs of compatibility or antipathy between charts. It is not unusual to have charts that reflect the antagonism between two rivals, right? And it's also not uncommon, and it's actually expected, of course, to see planets connecting in very compatible ways in charts of people who are very dear friends. So the thing about it is, in life, there are many circumstances where people may find themselves, depending on their social strata and their professional life, they may find themselves in positions where they're friendly with people, but not really friends, right? And you'll see that absence of connection in the charts as well. So one of the most important things, I think, and your mileage may vary, you may have a very different opinion about these things, but in my estimation, one of the most important things in life is our friendships. It's right up there with our family relationships, because between our families and our friends, these represent support systems. So it's very important that we have healthy, supportive relationships, hopefully from family and friends, but failing one, certainly the other. So friendships rate really high up there in terms of things that really matter in life. Okay? And with that said, one of the most painful and worst betrayals next to a family member betraying you is someone you thought was a friend. That is probably the deepest cut of all. So, were Mackenzie and Lauren friends? Did they have the possibility to be friends? Let's take a look. All right. So the first thing, when we look at these charts, let me pull up a different color here. All right. When we look at the charts for Lauren and Mackenzie, right? So let's look at what's connecting between them. So the first thing I see right off the top is a Venus-Mars conjunction across the charts. Okay. Look at this. We've got a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Okay. They're going to have a Neptune conjunction. They're born within a year of each other. Yeah, they're born within a year of each other. So Neptune's pretty much going to be in the same place all the time. The sun is a little wide, but we can still use it. So it's a Sun-Mercury conjunction. All right. Now, let me just double check something before I get too deep out here. Yes, we will come back to that. All right. Now, also, we've got this Moon-Mars-Jupiter conjunction. So right off the top, we're seeing a whole lot of really powerful aspects between these two women. So they would very much have been drawn to each other, and looking at these aspects, they would have enjoyed each other's company a lot. So here, with a Sun-Mercury conjunction, because Lauren is on the outer ring. So Lauren and Mackenzie would have felt comfortable discussing things with each other. Lauren would have helped Mackenzie put her thoughts and ideas into more action, and Mackenzie would have been a very good sounding board for Lauren to help her sort out her thoughts on things. All right. Here, with Lauren's Jupiter-Uranus conjuncting Mackenzie's Uranus, and actually we're not even going to use Lauren's Uranus because, like Jupiter, it will be in the same place. What we'd really look for is right there. So that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction between the two charts, this also makes them very lucky together, and it also stimulates them in very amiable, friendly ways. So Lauren would have had the ability to bring out the more adventurous, risk-taking side of Mackenzie, you know, for what's there. And certainly this together, those two planets together, create a very mischievous energy. So these would have been literally cohorts in crime, as it were, partners in crime. And also over here, we've got this Venus-Mars conjunction, right? Now here's something that people often get confused about. So typically when people discuss Venus and Mars together, they're talking about Venus and Mars in a romantic or a sexual sense, you know, ooh, sexual attraction, blah, 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 blah. And that's all true and valid, but it's not, those planets are not limited to sexual attraction. So with a Venus-Mars conjunction across the charts, in people who would not be attracted to each other because of their gender preference, what you'll find is that you have people who, again, still are very compatible with each other and very in sync with each other's rhythm and kind of pace of doing things. But the other is that it's like having a girl crush or a celebrity crush, right? It's like having a crush on somebody that's more platonic than sexual. So they would have enjoyed each other's company immensely, and they would have gotten along famously. So that is a huge, positive, strong indication that these two would have had a great friendship. The other things, if you look, right, so now remember, we don't really know where that moon is. That moon, back or forth a couple degrees, right? But here, because Jupiter, we're going to give a wide orb, Jupiter is somewhere around the moon and definitely on her Mars, on Lauren's Mars. So the thing with Jupiter contacts is Jupiter contacts across the chart are typically very good, right? It's a very feel-good aspect. So Mackenzie would have been very supportive of Lauren's efforts, her ambitions, you know, her desires, whatever Lauren, you know, felt like she needed to do or whatever. Mackenzie would have been her cheerleader, right? Especially when you've got this going on as well. So in a lot of ways, Mackenzie would have admired Lauren for the things that Lauren does or did, you know, that are very assertive, you know, risk-taking sort of stuff, right? So this is a phenomenal aspect to have between friends, because when someone's Jupiter is on one of your personal planets, they're always going to be there for you. They have the greatest capacity to forgive and still support you. You know, up to, like, there's a limit to the kind of transgressions they can forgive. But, you know, for all the little stuff that weaker friendships will break on, Jupiter contacts to your chart will always be in your corner. It's a phenomenal aspect to have. So Mackenzie would have been very graciously disposed towards Lauren. Okay. The problem here is that, remember, Mackenzie carries this Jupiter-Saturn opposition. So it's a tough placement. And also with Jupiter in Scorpio, just like Mars in Scorpio, Mackenzie is extremely sensitive to betrayal and being taken advantage of, as it were, and all that sort of stuff, right? So she's not that forgiving. Okay. So the thing about it is, with Lauren's placement, the Moon and Mars here, it also opposes Mackenzie's Saturn. And what that means is that in many ways, while Lauren was sitting in Mackenzie's blind spot, because Jupiter can be your blind spot, because you're like overly generous to people here. At the same time, Lauren would have been very, very aware of the things that would really hurt Mackenzie. And if we take this out of the equation and it's just a Mars-Saturn opposition, right? In many ways, Lauren would have been very competitive with Mackenzie. And in some ways, in many ways, that Mars-Saturn opposition across the charts is just a painful placement to have, because Mars will invariably do something that really pushes all the fear buttons and all the insecurity buttons and all those painful issues that Saturn represents in the other person. So, and Lauren certainly has fulfilled that aspect in action, hasn't she? Good Lord. So, with this, and so we've got Pluto sextiles and all that sort of stuff, and I'm not going to get too much into them because they're not particularly useful. So again, let's just looking at the Mercury, right? So we've got a Sun-Mercury conjunction here. Now Lauren has Mercury out at 11 Aquarius. And it is trining Mackenzie's Uranus. So again, we've got these Mercury contacts, which shows, you know, compatibility. And with the Mercury-Uranus trine, we've got this sense of stimulation, constant mental stimulation and mischief, right? And with the Sun-Mercury, there's a lot of understanding and a lot of being able to use each other as a sounding board. This was should have been a phenomenal relationship, right? Platonic relationship. So this, I think, obviously I could be wrong about all these things, but if this is true, this really, really creates a picture of deep, deliberate betrayal of a friend. You know, not only your spouse, but also of your friend. And that is unfortunate. And that is unfortunate. And that is the reason why I do not feel bad for Miss Sanchez and this quincunx that is hitting her Saturn at the same time that it is affecting Mackenzie's chart in a different way, of course. But with Miss Sanchez, this is very much about being alone with yourself, you know, one way or the other. And she is certainly going to be getting that coming to her in spades. So that's unfortunate. So, and that's it. That is our quick look at the divorce of the century, the world's most expensive divorce. Well, at least the most expensive divorce we can think of around here. So we're going to leave it like that. I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit more about relationships and synastry in a different video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share. And do remember that when we're doing astrology, right, and we're doing relationship charts are not the be-all, end-all of compatibility. That's the first thing. Maturity level, your character, because obviously an astrology chart will not tell us about your character or your integrity. So maturity, character, integrity, goals, and desires, and where you're at in life. All of these things factor into what will make a relationship successful. So before we get into, is this my soulmate? The first thing we want to ask ourselves is, what purpose does this relationship need to serve in my life, or do I want it to serve? Okay, because clearly, if you're looking for a relationship that's going to offer you excitement and adventure and sexual fulfillment, that's not the same question as, can I make money with this person? Are we going to be financially stable? Like, are we going to be financially secure? In a perfect world, we would have all these things. But, in a perfect world, we would also be born rich, be born beautiful, be born excruciatingly intelligent, and, there would be a cure for cancer and the common cold. We'd never have wars and nobody would ever go hungry. So that's not happening. So the perfect marriage combination of all that isn't going to happen either. So we have to ask ourselves, ultimately, what is the thing that's most comfortable for us moving forward? And more importantly, what is going to suffocate us, or bury us, or terrify us so much we're going to have anxiety all the time. So we have to learn our own limitations as far as what we can and can't deal with in a relationship. And then we have to find people that can dovetail in with us and be great life partners moving forward. Because love, honey, will not pay your bills. Trust me. And you're going to be surprised how quickly you stop loving people when those bills aren't getting paid. I'm just saying. So, and the other thing too is that, and astrology helps with this also. Sometimes it's important to have a second set of eyes look at something so we can separate our physical attraction from actually liking somebody. When we're younger, it's a whole different ballgame. Your hormones are powerfully decisive in terms of who you want to be with. Powerfully. Don't ever think for a minute that you're immune from your gonads thinking for you. Believe me when I tell you, it's when you get older that some of that kind of dips down, that you start thinking like a rational human being again. And now it really becomes about the personality, because listen, all the pretty face and good sex in the world, my back, sorry, all the pretty face and good sex in the world will not make it tolerable to spend 5 minutes in the company of somebody you just don't like. But the hormones have to go down a little bit and stop controlling your thoughts before you get to that point and figure it out and really see it. So, blah, blah, blah. So that's that. And ultimately, my big life advice for all of you is take your friendships seriously, because at the end of the day, it's so important. It's so important. And, the old saying is, if you get married and your best friend is in the wedding party, you're marrying the wrong person. Liking each other and being able to be friends with each other is the most important thing. Not only with the person you marry, but also with the people around you. And if you can't be a good friend, you're not worth anything to anybody. Just saying. All right, you guys, have a great day. Hi. So if you enjoyed this video, please, by all means, like, subscribe, and share. And if you'd like a private reading, or you'd like a chart reading done for your relationship or upcoming marriage, or many other things, please, by all means, send me an email inquiry to primalgirlwellness@gmail.com. The email will be below. Or you can find me on Patreon, patreon.com/primalgirlwellness. Phone readings are available by phone and or Skype, and we'll be doing some fun stuff with palmistry. And also some Google Hangout stuff. Also, if you're interested in doing psychic parties, like tarot card readings or astrology, well, maybe not astrology so much, but, ooh, itchy. Tarot card readings or psychic readings, and you'd like to be able to do this where you're at, I'm certainly enthusiastic about talking to you about all the things that are possible now, thanks to modern technology and the internet. So now you too can have a party where everybody can get their reading, and at your home or in the privacy of their own homes, while I am over here. So I don't even have to necessarily be physically in the room for you guys to get your little psychic reading on. Okay, so I enjoy doing this. Thank you guys so much for your support, and see you soon.